say to me in Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another How to Play video, and today I'm going to teach you how to play Skyjo Action. This is for 2 to 8 players, ages 8 plus, take about 30 minutes to play, and we've got it all set up, so let's show you what we're going to do. So first I have a 2-player game set up, but if you're going to play with more players, you're obviously going to need more of these grids set up. So the first thing you're going to want to do is separate the different types of cards. So there will be one large deck, which is filled with all of the positive, negative numbers, and the stars. And you're going to shuffle up that deck, and you're going to create your grids with that deck, and then place one card as a discard pile.
Don't look at any of the face-down cards.
Now, the remainder of the cards are going to be what are called action cards. You're going to shuffle up all these cards, place them into a pile, and then you are going to create a face-up row of 4 of these cards up here, and then create one card in a discard pile. Also, if your version of the game has these blank cards in there, mix them in, and I'll explain why at the end of the video when we talk about all the different action cards. Now, if it's your first game, they recommend you take out the Action Thief and the Meteor Shower cards. So if you decide to do that, take those cards out, just put them back in the box. You won't need them. Now, to decide the first player, every single player is going to randomly flip over 2 of the cards in their grid, and whoever has the highest score is going to go first. So this player would have showed a -1 with a 0 and a -1, and this player would have showed an 11 with an 11 and a star. Now, star cards are very special, and we're going to talk about those a little bit later, but if you reveal one during this segment, it just counts as a 0. But whenever you reveal a star card, you get the option to take one of the 4 face-up action cards, even if it's during this phase. So this player might just take this card right here, set it next to their grid, and then immediately put another card here. And whenever you take one from here, you will immediately put another card right there.
You also always have the option to take the top face-down card from the action draw pile.
And if you ever need to draw an action card and there's not one here, you take the entire discard pile, shuffle it up, and create a new pile, making sure to put one card on top of the discard pile as well, like we have right now. Now, Skyjo Action is played over a series of rounds. You're going to be scoring points each round, so one person is going to need to be the point keeper. You'll get them a pen and the pad. And at the beginning of each round, you're going to get a whole new grid of cards. You will shuffle up all the regular cards and the action cards, and it's like you're starting over a whole new game, but with the points from previous rounds. At the beginning of these new rounds, though, you won't actually be flipping over cards. The player who finished the last round may start the current round, and we'll talk about how you finish a round in a minute. But now, back to our first player, and let's talk about the actions that you can do on your turn. And you're going to be able to do one of 3 different actions every single turn. And once you're done with your turn, the action will move clockwise to the player on your left, and it will always go clockwise around the table. The first action you can take is to draw a card from either the top of the regular pile or the top of the regular discard pile. If you draw the face down card, you get a look at it and then decide if you want to put it in your grid. Which now brings us to the whole point of the game, which is to have the lowest score. So if I wanted to, it might be a smart decision to get rid of this 11 and put the 5 there. Then I'd put the 11 on the discard pile and my turn would be over. But I don't have to take that action. I could do something different. For instance, I could pick any one of the face-down cards and replace the 5 with that. So let's pretend I did this, and oh no, I actually got rid of a -1. Well, tough cookies, you have to do it. But let's pretend that I hadn't done that as well, because there's also one more thing that I could do, which is to decide that I don't actually want this card, which might happen if you happen to draw like an 11 or something. If that's the case, you put that card onto the discard pile, and then you reveal one of your face-down cards. And once again, if you get a star, you would then immediately get one of the cards up here. But let's pretend that I actually like the face-up card that I see on the discard pile. You can also take this as your action as well. Now, if you do this, you have to play this card. You can't put it back. But if you decide you don't want to do that, you can do the second action, which is to draw one of the action cards that's face-up or the face-down action card right here. The action cards go near you, but they don't go into your grid. Now, we're going to talk a good deal about what each of the action cards do at the end of this video. But for right now, what you need to know is typically the cards will not have you doing anything immediately when you draw them. They will be actions you can take on future turns, which actually segues us nice to the third choice you have on your turn, which is that you can play one of the action cards that you have in front of you. So if you decide to play one of your action cards that you have in front of you, you will do the action on the card, and then the card will get discarded. You can also just discard. So if you decide to play one of your action cards that you have in front of you, you will do the action on the card, and then the card will get discarded. You can also just discard one action card instead of playing one action card if you just want to get rid of it. And you might do this if it's coming to the end of a round. Because at the end of the round, you want to have the fewest points, and having any of these cards in your area will get you 10 points per card. So in summary, on your turn, you're going to take only one action, either drawing from these piles, drawing from these piles, remember you can't get the discard from up here, or playing or discarding one action card. And remember, when you play a card, it immediately gets discarded after you've done the actions. Now, before we get into how a round ends, I want to mention two very specific rules that will impact every round. The first rule is if you ever happen to get an entire row or column with all having the same number, all those cards immediately get discarded and you will not score them at the end of the round, which is a good thing. So for instance, if I was able to make it be a 7 here and a 7 here, all these 7s would then immediately go away
To the discard pile.
Now, stars are very interesting as well, so let's talk a little bit about them with this specific rule. Stars can be any number you want them to be at the end of your turn. So let's say, for instance, this was a 7 and this was a 7, and then let's pretend that this was a 7. Once they all got revealed, they would immediately have to get discarded. However, if this was a 7, and this was a 7, and this was a 7, and then this was a star, I would decide if this was getting discarded because I could make this whatever number I wanted to at the end of a round because stars are wild like that. This number could also change as well, and one thing that I could potentially do here if I wanted to is if I could get 2 7s right here and then another 11 right here and reveal it, I could turn this into an 11 at the end of my turn, which would clear away these cards, and then I would just have 3 7s here, which would then clear away these cards, and I would only have 6 cards left on the table. Now, in order to do this, you have to have at least 3 or 4 cards. So in this aforementioned example, if both these were 10s, that wouldn't count because you can't do it with just 2 cards. You have to do it with at least 3 or 4. So I could, if I had 3 10s here, do it one more time. But once again, that's only when the cards come face up. And yes, at the end of a round, you're actually going to reveal your cards no matter what, and that can trigger right then as well. So you can sometimes unexpectedly have cards disappear during the scoring phase. Now, the other thing you might potentially be able to pull off is having 3 or 4 stars in a row. And if you're able to do that, those don't immediately get discarded like regular numbers would. You can decide to get rid of those if you want, but you probably don't want to. So let's pretend that I had star, star, star right here. That would be negative 10 points during the scoring phase. Likewise, if I was able to do 4 across, that would be negative 15 points. 2 more minor things with clearing out a row. When you clear out a row, so let's pretend this was 7, 7, 7 star, you get to decide the order that you place the cards in the discard pile. So if you want to bury the star, you can do that. Also, if you get this row and it's obtained as a result of a swap with the draw pile or discard pile, the triplet/quad must always be played in the discard pile after the swapped card. What this basically means is that whenever you clear out a row, so let's pretend that I drew this top card right here, it was a 7, and I put the 7 there, and I'm like, hooray, I completed this row. Whatever this card is that I'm now getting rid of is going to go here first, and then all these cards are going to get placed right here in whatever order I want to do them, so if I wanted to put the star on top, I could. However, you typically don't want to do that, because once again, if someone were to draw this star from this discard pile and place it into their thing, they would then immediately get to draw one of the action cards from up here. Now, the second major rule that I want to mention also can be connected with how you're going to end a round. So let's do it together. So you're going to end a round when anyone finally reveals all of the cards in their area. Once someone does that, they're going to trigger the end of the round. And how this works is they've taken their turn. They will not get another turn. However, everyone else at the table will get one more turn, but on that turn, action cards cannot be played or discarded on this final turn. If you have them, you're stuck with them. So once everyone has completed their modified turns, except for the player who triggered the end, now everyone is going to reveal their cards and tally up their score. Now remember, as you're revealing your cards, if you complete a row or a column, all those cards then go away. Now, I'm going to teach you how to do scoring in a second, but first I want to go back to that special rule that I mentioned, which is that if you are the person who triggers the end of the round, that means that you are telling everyone that you think you have the lowest score in front of you. If you do not have the lowest score by yourself, so if you're tied with someone else, you still get this penalty, you have to double your points. So let's pretend that this player had 22 points and they go out and this player had 22 points. As well. That means their score for this round would be 22, whereas their score would now be 44. So when you go out, you want to be confident you have the lowest amount of points. And just to clarify, if you ever have negative points and you still don't have the lowest amount, you don't multiply those. At that point, whatever your negative number is just how many points you score that round. But with that being said, let's talk about how scoring works.
You just tally up the number of points you have grand total. So for instance, I would have 9 plus 3, that'd be 12, minus 2, that'd be 10, and then 0. At 15, plus 9 would be 24, 34, 39, 43, 45, 44, and then this is plus 10, so this would be 54 points.
Let's take a look at how they did over here. Let's flip everything up.
They would have 11. Stars are not worth anything, so they would have 21, 28, 27, because we get the negative 1, 34, 35, and 44.
Also, don't forget with the scoring, if you happen to have a complete row or column of stars, it's either negative 10 or negative 15 points based on whether or not it's 3 or 4 in a row.
Don't forget to double the points of the player who finished the round if they don't have the lowest score at the end of it.
So the scorekeeper would tally up the points on here. And if someone has 100 or more points, then the game is over and whoever has the fewest points wins the game. However, if no one has 100 points, then you reshuffle everything, you redeal, and you repeat everything we just talked about. But now with that out of the way, we're going to go a little bit more in depth on the star cards and the action cards and exactly what they do. And then we'll also talk about some different variants that you could play. So with the star cards, once again, when you reveal one, you have the option to take an action card and play it down in front of you. You do not have to do that. However, this option is only available to you
Until the end of your turn.
Also, if you pull some sort of shenanigans and then put it back face down and reveal it again, you don't get to do it again. It's a one-time for you only type of thing. However, if you did discard it and someone else picked it up, then they could do it. And if they happen to discard it again and then it came back to you, you could do it, but that's highly unlikely. So the only thing we have left to do is talk about what all the different action cards do, and then we'll talk about the different variations. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to leave this right here for you. You can pause this video. Just consider giving it a thumbs up as you do it in case you need to come back to this during the game, but let's talk about them. So first we have swap your own cards, which will allow you to swap any two positions of any two of the cards in your area. They can be face up or face down, and when you place them down, they can be face up or face down. You get to choose. Next we have double move, and when you play this, you will take 2 turns in a row. Really quite simple. Next we have draw 3 cards, and this is going to let you draw 3 cards from the draw card pile and keep one of them if you'd like. The remaining cards are placed in any order on the discard pile, and if you decide not to take any of the 3 cards, a card from your own layout must still be turned face up. Next we have the Enlightenment card. You may look at the face down cards of a complete column or row of your area or another player's area. Next, we have Reactivation, which is one of the weirder cards in the game, because when you play this, you immediately select an action card from the discard pile
And take the actions on that card.
Next, we have the Defense plus additional move. And how this works is you don't actually have to play this card in order to get its value. Once you choose it and put it into your play area, it protects you from an incoming attack, because there are 3 attack cards in the game, which we're about to talk about next. Now, if someone does happen to attack you, this card then goes away and gets placed on the discard pile. Now, the other thing you can do with this card is you can choose to play this card, and you just discard it so you no longer have the protection, but then you get 1 additional move. So you can take another regular action. Now, this card right here, actually, I believe was a misprint on this version of the game, and this is supposed to be the swap cards with another player attack card. So maybe just with a Sharpie, write in swap attack. But this card is going to allow you to swap 1 card between 2 players or between you and 1 other player. You get to choose the 2 cards, and also you get to choose whether those cards are face up or face down. Next, we have the Thief, which allows you to get 1 additional turn, and you also get to steal an action card from one of your opponents. However, you have to wait until the next turn, so you can't just steal something then immediately play it. You would have to wait until the next time it gets around to you. Next, we have the Meteor Shower card, which will allow you to remove 1 card from everyone's grid, including yourself. All those cards get put onto the bottom of the discard pile, and then everyone is going to draw a new card, which will go face up in the now empty spot created by the Meteor Shower. And this does work on action cards and star cards. However, if you decide to discard someone's action card, they don't draw another action card. But that should be all you need to play Skyjo Action. Now, one thing I want to also mention are some different variations that you can decide to do if you want to mix up the game. First, you can play the game without an action deck if you would like. So in addition to just creating the regular game, 5 to 10 action cards are then shuffled into the deck of playing cards, and if a player draws or reveals one of them, they can keep the action card or put it on the playing card's discard pile. In any case, they draw a card from the deck of playing cards afterwards, and all the other rules remain unchanged. That's for 2 to 6 players. Next, if you don't want to play with action cards, you can just completely remove them from the game, and you can do that. Also, if you don't like specific action cards, you can take them out and mix them in as you please before the game. Or even in between rounds, because every round is essentially its own little game. Also, if you just want to play the original Skyjo, you can take out the star cards, and you can take out the action cards and just play that. Last, if you want to increase the maximum number of players up to 10 players, you can do a 3x3 grid instead of a 4x3 grid. And at the beginning of the game, when deciding who's the first player, only 1 card is revealed instead of 2. But that's how you play Skyjo Action. If this video helped you out, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And also, if you enjoy learning new games, please consider giving this channel a subscribe. And go have some fun. As always, thanks for your time, YouTube. This video is brought to you by all of my amazing Patreon supporters. And I would love it if you would join their ranks and have your name immortalized in the end of many of my videos for the end of time. But consider for only $1 a month. And as always, thanks for stopping by.